In part 2 of Bob Gaskin's Morals of Survival presentation, Bob starts asking the tough moral questions, such as, what do you do next in a life and death scenario? Would you be able to turn away a neighbor who has not been able to feed his family? Are you ready for death, destruction, chaos, pestilence, and disease? Are you emotionally ready to encounter a family whose small child has been raped or murdered? He advocates changing the way we think about being prepared and how you should be preparing. Do you spend your time listening to the talking heads about false flags and FEMA camps, or are you spending that time prepping? Bob then begins explaining his end-of-the-world scenario using some very, very unique methods. So stick with it and watch part 2.
See, in that moment, those deaths are on your shoulders. Whether you accept it or not now, they are on your shoulders then. And guys, if you're so cold-hearted as to say that they won't be on your shoulders, trust me, according to your wife, they will be. Okay, because really, let's look. The average folks here, the women, you're more focused on what? Medical supplies, hygiene, food, some extra books for your kids to study and learn under, right? You're focused on the family surviving and maintaining as normal of a life as possible, right? And the guys are what? You got to have the biggest, baddest, newest firearm. You got to have 10,000 rounds of ammo for it. You got to have the cool fire starter kit and the great knife. Am I right? Okay. I know this because I consult with families for years all over the country, and I get the same thing. I run through a seminar or a scenario, and the guy says, well, I'd kill him. And then he looks to his wife, and his wife's like, yeah, that's my man. And then you run through the whole thing, and eventually you get to a question that they just don't know the answer to, and that's typically, well, what do you do next? When you killed the dad, and then you killed the mom, and the children are starving now because you've taken away their parents, now what do you do? See, there's always a next in every situation. And especially when we're dealing with a life and death scenario, there's always a next. And if you're thinking about those now, you're increasing your ability to survive them then. Because in the heat of that moment, you can't think, you can't process. Don't tell me you can't. When you're looking at a man who's running at you with a knife in his hand because he's so desperate for what you have, and you're such a selfish prick that you won't share it with him, you don't have time to think. You pull your firearm, you pull the trigger. It's that simple. And then that person's dead. Now what? Well, his wife, caught up in grief, jumps up, grabs his knife, and comes at you. What happens to her? What do you do then? You shoot her, right? Now what about her kids? What then? Because today, when life is normal, or as normal as it can be for us, instead of thinking about these things and what you're going to do and follow it through and have a plan already established in your head, so that when that person does approach you desperate, you give them what they need. Because when the world was old, you didn't waste your time with these fear-mongering videos. You learned how to survive in that world so you can get more. Y'all with me? Do you know you can survive for a month off of a dead pine tree, a living pine tree, and a knife? A month. How many people here can do that? How many people here can tell me something that Alex Jones or Glenn Beck talked about in the last 6 months? Y'all are grinning and laughing. I hit home with that one, didn't I? It's time we change the way we think. Because everything that we know is over. It's done. And there's no going back. I love it when people say, well, Bob, I've been away for 6 years. Man, I'm paying attention to everything that's going on, and I'm ready for when it happens. I'm like, the idiot, it's already happened. If you're so awake, why didn't you already know that? Right? How many here knew that it's already happened? It's not your fault. You just haven't been awake. You've said I'm awake, but in reality, you're laying in bed, you've hit the snooze button twice. Me, I'm up, I've had a pot and a half of coffee. I'm going. I'm amped up. I'm awake. Because I haven't spent my time listening to the crap. I love it when preppers say to me, we had this conversation earlier, when preppers say to me, well, you know, all the false flags that are going on and the government's controlling the media and the media is diverting us. I get all of my information from the alternative media, who keeps me focused on things that don't exist, like FEMA coffins and FEMA camps and blah, 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 blah. Right? Are you awake? Are you ready for what's coming? Are you mentally and emotionally prepared to see death and destruction, chaos, pestilence, disease, everywhere you turn? Are you ready to be walking home and encounter a family where a small child has been raped and murdered? Are you ready to encounter that mentally and emotionally? Anybody? Because that's what we're dealing with, guys. That's it. In 6 months' time, we will have less than 10% of the population in the United States. In 6 months' time. The East Coast has a .001 survivability rate. These aren't my numbers. These are 138 government agencies from around the world. You don't believe me? Go home and research it, because the information's been there for actually the information's been there for over a decade now. It's right there for you to see. You just got to turn off the stuff that justifies that fear and makes you feel good and ability to sleep at night, because other people think about the same things you think about and are afraid of the same things you're afraid of. So it justifies it. It calms us down. But you do this every single day. You learn how to overcome those fears. Now you don't have to justify them anymore. And you can sleep much better. If I've lost anybody yet. Because we're moving into the point where some of you are going to get offended. I'm okay with that. There's the exit. You can also go that way. Because some of you don't want to die. How awake do you think you are until yesterday? Was that you that said that to me yesterday, by the way? Okay. But you did like in school, when we're children, we're taught that the sun rotates, the earth rotates around the sun, right? I need you to come give me a hand. Can I borrow you for a second? Can I borrow you for a second? Don't. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint, so you get to be the sun, because you're taller than they are. Stand right here. Actually, come right here for me. Okay, whoops. Right there. Okay. I need you to step aside for a second. You get to be the earth. Okay? So I want you to start walking around him like this. Nice and slow. Okay? All right. This is what we're taught in school, guys. We're taught that the sun stands still and the earth rotates around the sun. The problem is, well, they don't really teach us that the earth stands still. They let us assume that with those little coat hangers with styrofoam colored balls. Everybody remembers those, right? But this is not where the story ends. Stop for a second. Step over here. Come here for a second. Right there. Now, go. I need y'all to both start walking in a circle like this. You're never going to get closer or farther apart. See, this is our star. This is our sun. This is Sol. Okay? This is our sister binary star. That's why you got to be like sisters of female, right? This is Solarius. I'd like to introduce y'all to Solarius. See, Solarius is never closer or farther away from Sol. Right? Y'all can stop now. But stay up here. Never do they ever get closer or farther apart. That's our binary system. That's what we're all a part of. Okay? Okay. You get to be somebody completely different. You're Palladius. Okay? I want you to stand right here. Okay? And you're going to stand behind him. You're going to stand behind him. You're going to stand in front of him because short is the tallest, right? So here we go. All right. Now the problem is that while we rotate around the sun, Solarius and Sol do this dance together in the opposite direction, right? But together, I'm sorry, come here. You're right here. Just follow the leader. You're going to do this. Just walk around him like this. Just like this. Okay? Okay, so he's Palladius, the megastar, right? And Sol and Salarius together, while they're dancing around each other, a cute little waltz, right? They're doing this on a grand ballroom, and in the center of that grand ballroom floor is Palladius, the megastar. All right, stop. You're Palladius, step back here. You step off the side. You're the Milky Way, because you're taller. He's the Milky Way. Now here's the problem, right? See, they've all been on this nice little heliocentric and ecliptic plane, right? Orbiting, doing what they're supposed to do. But this being the Milky Way pulls everything in a completely different direction. So if you can picture this dude jumping over him, come on, okay, not gonna happen. Jumping over him and going under him, and then jumping over him and going under him. So it's on a perpendicular orbit or perpendicular plane. Everybody with me so far? Y'all didn't expect a science lesson today, did you? Okay. Y'all go ahead and sit down. Y'all can picture this though, right? The problem is that while we're rotating around Sol, we're creating what's called frictional magnetism. And something most people don't realize is that if Sol is moving, then what are we doing? We're circling around him, right? But if he's moving, what are we doing? Somebody answer. We're spiraling through the universe. But see, in that process, while Sol is dancing around Salarius, and together they're doing their waltz around the dance floor around Palladius in the center, and then Palladius is doing this nice little loop, so the entire building that they're in, the whole floor is doing this number, right? It's creating 4 different frictional magnetisms, one of which is in opposition to 2, 3 of which are inverse from the 4. Have I lost anybody? Okay, outstanding. We're getting to why this is important. Nobody's lost at this point, because I'm really going to lose you if I continue. Anybody? Okay. The reason that this is so important is this. We're spiraling through the universe in a zig and a zag pattern. Archaeology, archaeoanthropology, socioanthropology, they have all taught us that every 36 to 3,700 years, our star charts change. If you go back 3,800 years and look at the star charts painted on the insides of all of the pyramids of the world, and guys, if you think you know how many pyramids there are, you are so mistaken. So mistaken. There are hundreds of them around the earth. Okay? Anyway, you look at the star charts from 3,700, 3,800, 4,000, 4,500 years ago, they're different from what we have now. In fact, they're off by 37.6 degrees. That is a very important number that you're going to hear many times today, and you need to lock it into your memory, your permanent memory. Save it on your hard drive and your memory stick, and get ready to bring it back when we need it. Okay? Because when we go back 72 to 7,300 years, we only have one civilization that we can access and look at, and that's the ancient Aryans. We found over 14 of their villages. Where's my neo-Nazis in the house? Oh, it's a shame, because I wanted to insult somebody. See, the descendants of the Aryans, the original Aryans, the original civilized race here on Earth, the first to have a written language, right, are the Orientals, the Asians. Specifically the Chinese. The Chinese, the I Ching, the original language, the ancient Chinese, the original language that the I Ching was written in is the closest language we can come up with that would descend from the ancient Aryan language, which is pretty awesome. Anyway, the point of all of this is that their star charts are different from the ones from 3,500 to 7,000 years ago, and they're off by how far? Can anybody guess? You, sir, how far? 37.6 degrees. Y'all with me so far? Okay, so you're in your car, you're on a dark desert highway, right? Cool wind in here? Anyway, you're on this long stretch of road, driving through the desert, right? And you look in your rear view mirror, and you can see everything you've just passed for miles. The scenery in your rear view mirror doesn't change until you come to a stop sign, and then you hang a right-hand turn. Now, everything that was in your rearview mirror is now out your passenger side window, and for a brief moment, you can still see it. Everybody with me so far? Okay. It is the same thing with our journey through the Milky Way. Every 3,647 years, we go from the zig to the zag. All right? Okay. The problem with that is that in order to do so, because we're moving with frictional magnetism, right? 3 different frictional magnetism, one that is inverse or in opposition of the other 2, moving this way, and then all of a sudden we have this inverse frictional magnetism that says, stop, turn slightly, how far? 37.6 degrees, and go this way now for 3,647 years. Everybody with me? This is something that's kind of, right? Because we've never heard this before, right? Well, you would have if you'd have continued your journey in your understanding of what's going on. But in the midst of that journey, you were distracted by people saying, the economy's going to collapse in 2 months on March 28th. Oh, wait, we're wrong. It's September 14th. Oh, no, it's October 22nd. Oh, no, let's start all over again. We're going to go back with March next year, because that gives me 6 months of people watching my videos so I get my check from YouTube. Hello? Had we not had our journey and our education interrupted, that's where it would have taken us. Now, why is this so important? Very simple, guys. In order to go from the zig to the zag, the sun has to stop rotating, has to stop spinning. Prior to that happening, every planet in our solar system, except for the Earth, has to experience a physical pole shift of what? 37.6 degrees. The Earth cannot have a physical pole shift. It is an impossibility. The Earth is made up of 7 layers of crust with 6 differentiating layers of magma with a magma core. The magma is always moving in opposition of the layer of magma above it and below it. This is what holds our magnetosphere into place. Okay? Okay. What we can have is a shift in the core of the Earth of 37.6 degrees. All right. Who here doesn't believe it? Dadgum thing I've said so far. Because here's where the proof is in the pudding. NASA.gov. Go visit NASA.gov. Between August and October of 2013, we saw every planet of our solar system, except for the Earth, have a physical 37.6 degree pole shift. We caught on video, NASA did, Jupiter, Uranus, and Pluto. You can go to NASA.gov and watch the videos, people. My favorite is Jupiter. The red eye disappears, and 42 seconds later it reappears. 37.6 degrees later. It was awesome. It was completely 100% awesome. You know another thing that was awesome? On September 22nd of 2013, that was awesome. On August the 11th of 2013, when you woke up that morning with the bright spot on the moon being in one location, and you went to bed that night with the bright spot on the moon being in a completely different location, and none of us paid attention to it. How far had the bright spot on the moon moved? 37.6 degrees. Y'all following a pattern here? It takes our magnetic poles 118 years to move 37.6 degrees. However, the last 68 to 72% of that migration takes place in the final 21 months of that 118 years. The final 21 months of the 3,647-year cycle. Okay? And on September 22nd, 2013, it happened. And in October of 2013, every airport in the world began renumbering their runways. In the Northern Hemisphere, runway number 1 must point toward true magnetic north. And the southern hemisphere runway number 1 must point towards your magnetic south. It is the only guideline that every airport in the world pays attention to. Military, civilian, private. And in October of 2013, they had to renumber all of their runways. How freaking awesome is that? Anybody? Awesome? Okay, here's where it's bad. Here's where the scary stuff starts, and then when we're done, I'm going to bring you out to the scary stuff. What time do we got? I need you to let me know when it's 1:03. Okay, you're my official timekeeper. That means I won't pick on you. The reason this is so important, guys, is because very specific things take place. You can find the proof of this in the Bible, not in the book of Revelation, in the book of Genesis, in the book of Daniel, right? In Proverbs, in Psalms.